things may get even worse for American silver eagles. I think it's safe to say that this is the worst bullion coin anyone could purchase right now. Some of the biggest bullion dealers out there are selling these coins with up to 71% premiums. The US Mint is in way over its head, and as we're going to go over in a little bit with their legal trouble, it's not looking like this situation is going to get resolved anytime soon. It's only going to get worse. And my theory is starting to come true as people are turning their backs on this extremely overpriced coin. Demand for Eagles is down 69% compared to last year. Now, you still got to take in consideration the US Mint sold 5 million ounces the first month of January alone, with an annual supply of around 13 million. That's extremely impressive. We saw record-breaking sales. But what happened now? Well, to look over this entire situation, we got to give it some context. Now, it all started back in 2020 when the US Mint literally ran out of Eagles. Flat out empty. Shelves are empty. They had to make a 1 million mintage supply from the San Francisco Mint. But that wasn't the end. That's when I started to get a hunch. That's when I started realizing things aren't adding up here. Then in 2021, the US Mint came out and announced that yes, the silver shortage is real. They're having an extremely hard time finding these silver blanks or these silver planchets to make their coins. The Royal Mint and the Perth Mint also came out and announced this, but it's only from government-backed mints. Why not private mints? We're going to go over that entire situation in a second. This isn't the end of the US Mint's, acknowledgement even of a silver shortage. In 2022, the US Mint halted the newly released Morgan and Silver Peace dollars because of the silver shortage. Mint officials identifying silver planchet shortages as the reason for the cancellation of these planned coins. And things got even worse because when they announced this, their legal trouble came up. We're also going to cover the codes they were in violation of as they're going up against Congress being non-compliant with demand. Hey, what's up, Silver Stackers? Thank you so much for being here. This is Silver Slayer. I made a video yesterday talking about how the US Mint's bullion demand is down 69% from last year, and that's silver demand. Gold is down 76% year over year. What's happened though? We saw the first month of January record-breaking sales, so why the huge dip right now? Are people starting to turn their backs on Eagles, or is it just silver demand overall? Well, I think it has to do a little bit of both. But that was the conversation we had in yesterday's video, which I do highly recommend you go check out. I'll link that in the description or the pinned comment. I'm also curious what you think about demand right now. Is it down because silver overall is just not appealing to investors, or is it because these coins are extremely overpriced and these massive premiums? This video is going to look a little deeper and more sinister, if you may call it. And not only that, things might be getting a whole lot worse. And I'm sure all of you are saying, Silver Slayer, you're just being over dramatic. You're just saying all this. What if I was to tell you that I'm actually saying this because other people have? This is numismaticnews.net talking about this entire situation with the US Mint and the silver shortages. Let's look at this. Effectively, the US Mint is prevented from complying with one statutory requirement to produce silver American Eagles sufficient to meet public demand by another statutory requirement that prohibits it from paying a price higher than the paper market spot price. So until and unless the statutes are changed to allow the US Mint to purchase physical silver at prices above the paper market spot prices, it will have continuing difficulty in acquiring sufficient metal to meet public demand. We're not done yet though, folks. Other private and government minting operations are able to acquire silver at prices above the commodity market prices, and they are doing so. Therefore, they are more likely to obtain the silver they need because they are paying higher prices than the limit imposed on what the US Mint can pay. See, the US Mint's problem of obtaining sufficient silver to meet public demand could be cured by changing a law to give the Mint greater price flexibility. I doubt that would ever even be considered. Folks. The federal government has strong interest in holding down silver and gold prices as a major tactic to minimize the interest rate it pays on its own $30 trillion of debt. This concern would almost certainly override any consideration of allowing the US Mint the flexibility to acquire sufficient silver. So, as long as the market price for physical silver remains consistently higher than the paper commodity contract price, the US Mint is going to continue experiencing difficulty in obtaining sufficient silver. See, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not just trying to hype a situation up and pull something out of thin air. This is real. And if you want even more proof, we can go over the exact codes they're in violation of. This is the article that talks about that. I will also link these other articles going over the situations over the last 2 years that's been happening, but I want to focus on this one because this is the meat and potatoes of why things might actually get worse. Like the guy said down below, it's not looking like this situation is going to get resolved anytime soon, and as long as the government is holding down prices, trying to cover its own interest it pays on its $30 trillion in debt, the Mint is going to continue having difficulty in acquiring sufficient metal to meet public demand, meaning that premiums are going to keep rising, or at least stay as high as they are. And also, another side note, the US Mint gets most of its silver from private mints, the Sunshine Mint to be exact. The Sunshine Mint's making a killing off selling to the US Mint, so they have absolutely no reason to do so except to just be nice. But we're talking about a recession, we're talking about money, and not only money, we're talking about precious metals, which is real money. You see why this situation might get a little sticky. Now let's cover this article titled, "When It Comes to Buying Silver, the Mint's Hands Are Tied." Last week, the US Mint announced that it would not strike 2022 dated Morgan and silver peace dollars as it was experiencing difficulty in coming up with an adequate supply of the silver planchets. Now, let me remind you, this does not mean there's a global silver shortage. The silver shortage is mainly coming from the industrial sector, not the investment sector. The investment sector only plays a small fraction of silver demand. We're talking about 1 billion ounces, 1.112 billion ounce demand this year, while Eagles are minted in the 13 million ounces per year, and they can't even come up with that, right? This is a much bigger picture when I talk about the silver shortage going into electric vehicles and solar panels and 5G towers. We're looking at investment demand, and this is coming from a completely different reason, also causing premiums from a completely different reason. It's more legal, like we're about to go over. But anyways, this month, the wholesale and retail prices of the bullion issue US Silver Eagle dollars have also increased relative to the commodity market silver spot prices. Now again, the US Mint is being blamed for not providing as many coins in qualities and quantities that the Secretary determines are sufficient to meet public demand, and that's text from 31 US Code 5112E. Now, as you can see, right, remember this article is written in 2022, the US Mint still, 2 years later, cannot fill the orders. So as he discussed in his March 18th, 2021 column, the US Mint has greater difficulty procuring sufficient silver supplies to meet public demand, and it's because it's constrained in how much it can pay for the physical silver, right? It has different laws than other mints. The Royal Mint and the Perth Mint, yes, they also are having a hard time. The Royal Mint's actually scrapping silver out of laptops and cell phones, but they have different laws and regulations. The U.S. Mint's $30 trillion in debt, and we're in a completely different bubble, completely different situation, and that's also, at least personally, why I think also why premiums are so much higher, and also why premiums for these coins in particular are only going to get worse, which is the point of this video. Why I think that silver eagles make it even worse, not all coins. To acquire silver to strike eagles, 31 U.S. Code 5112F1 requires that the Secretary shall sell the coins minted under subsection E, which is silver eagles, to the public at a price equal to the market value of the bullion at the time of the sale, plus cost of minting, marketing, distributing coins, which is, labor, materials, dyes, use of machinery, promotional, overhead expenses. To repeat from my column last March, which that's a great article, by the way, other statutes prohibit the U.S. Mint from offering to pay prices higher than established by the paper market spot prices. 31 U.S. Code 5116A3 states in part, the Secretary shall pay not more than the average world price for the gold. 31 U.S. Code 5116B2 states in part, the Secretary shall not pay more than the average world price for silver under any circumstances. As used in this paragraph, the term average world price means the price determined by a widely recognized commodity exchange at the time the silver is obtained by the Secretary, which is the LBMA, the London Bullion Market Association. Effectively, the U.S. Mint is prevented from complying with one statutory requirement to produce silver American eagles sufficient enough to meet public demand by another statutory requirement that prohibits it from paying a price higher than the paper market spot price. So until and unless these statutes are changed to allow the U.S. Mint to purchase physical silver at prices above the paper market spot prices, it will have continuing difficulty in acquiring sufficient metal to meet public demand, meaning that this situation isn't going to go away and it could only get worse, meaning premiums could only get higher as the mint struggles more and more to find silver. Low supply, high demand pushes the price up. Demand for eagles went through the roof. Lower supply, right? Supply deficits. Low supply, high demand pushes the price up. Might not be the spot price, but the price you have to pay, which is the physical price, which is the premiums. Other private and government minting operations are able to acquire silver at prices above commodity market spot prices, and they're doing so. And that's also why other private mints and even other government-backed mints, their premiums might start to come down. Now, those types of premiums and the U.S. Mint's premiums are a completely different situation, which is also why I think there's a lot of confusion between determining what makes a coin have premiums or why premiums are so high, and if premiums will come back down, is because there's a couple different situations going on here, and a lot of people don't know that. If you don't watch my channel, none of this information would be known to you, right? I'm the only one that dug any of this up, right? That's showing the legal stuff, showing any of this. That's why it's also really important that you share videos like this. And I'm not just saying that to get views. I do not care. I want people to understand and get a hold of this article one way or another. So the U.S. Mint's problem of obtaining sufficient silver to meet public demand could be cured by changing the law to give the mint greater price flexibility. I doubt that would ever even be considered. That's the scary part. If this, he's saying that this would be fixed if they allowed price flexibility, but he says he doubts that would ever even be considered. Not even considered, meaning that they're never going to have greater price flexibility, meaning this situation isn't going to be resolved. The federal government has a strong interest in holding down silver and gold prices as a major tactic to minimize the interest rate it pays on its own $30 trillion of debt. So it's coming around full circle. This concern would almost certainly override any consideration of allowing the U.S. Mint the flexibility to acquire sufficient silver. And then this is the important part. So as long as the market price remains consistently higher than the paper price, the mint is going to continue experiencing difficulty in obtaining sufficient silver, meaning the silver shortage is going to keep happening. Now, this article goes even deeper, and this is, by the way, from the same website, numismaticnews.net. This is almost like a branch off. So what we just covered was illegal stuff. This is another article that's just as good as the last article we just covered, which is pretty crazy to say because that was such a well-written and educational article. But hopefully you're still sticking around, this far, and if you are, pat yourself on the back. We're about to get into even deeper news. So last week's column about the U.S. minted difficulty in sourcing sufficient silver to meet public demand for 2022 dated Morgan and Silver Peace dollars drew a large number of great comments and questions. So we're gonna look at what's really happening. This is gonna go into where the U.S. Mint gets their silver from, all of this stuff. This is the deep stuff, folks. So at some point, I want to start here because this is, kind of where it started. At some point, the U.S. Mint stopped acquiring physical silver to prepare their own silver eagle dollar planches. Instead, it went outside planches suppliers such as Sunshine Minting, Leach and Garner, Perth Mint, and possibly even the Royal Canadian Mint. After this happened, he had a chance to talk with the U.S. Mint director at the time. Right? This guy isn't just some random, random blogger. This guy is deep in this. So he had a chance to talk with the U.S. Mint director. And he asked why the Mint was outsourcing its own production of silver eagles. He said that the variability in demand from year to year, where during in his term the U.S. Mint director from 2006 to 2011, the uncirculated silver eagle dollar mintages ranged from 9 million 2007 to 40 million 2011. Made it difficult to maintain equipment, personnel for high production years. Also to enable the mint to trim costs in lower mintage years. And they have to guesstimate the following year. That's the hardest part, and that's why they ran out of silver in 2020, is because nobody could have predicted that global situation happening, right? And since they they did already have a number of these coins minted, and then that happens, demand is way higher, they run out. So anyways, the mint has not experienced such wild swings in public demand for coins struck for circulation purposes or for the numismatic market. In order to economically smooth out mint operations, it would have to limit the maximum number of silver equal dollars it struck each year, contrary to the U.S. law that specified the mint strike sufficient coins to meet public demand. The solution to this dilemma was to outsource planchet production. Thus, the capital, personnel, and overhead costs and logistics were someone else's problem. These planchet manufacturers signed long-term contracts to supply the U.S. Mint a specified number of blanks with some wiggle room for times of lower and higher public demand. The problem with outsourcing arrangement is that the suppliers to the U.S. Mint also created bullion products sold in competition to the Mint. So in times when the U.S. Mint experienced high demand for silver eagle dollars, the planchet suppliers were also enjoying higher demand for the coins and ingots that they produced for the public. These suppliers enjoyed higher profit margins when selling their own coins and ingots to the market than the margins they were made selling back to the U.S. Mint. Now you can see what I'm talking about. And now do you see why it's so important to be watching this far into the video? Because I'm sure a lot of people already commented about a lot of this stuff, not knowing that it was actually going to be answered in the video or covered. That's why I always say, watch the video before you leave a comment, or you're probably going to sound silly, because we're covering a lot of stuff that a lot of people probably thought wasn't going to be talked about in this video. These suppliers could purchase commodity contracts to take delivery of physical silver at the spot price, but in times of high demand, the silver source would not provide adequate silver supplies to fill demand for both their own products and to the U.S. Mint. These suppliers were not restricted by law. as is the US Mint, into only purchasing silver at market prices, right? That's the difference. Consequently, they can offer to pay prices above spot to acquire silver for their own product, and pass along these higher prices when they sell the coins and ingots, but as they absorb physical silver available on the market at prices above spot, that leaves less metal available at spot price to fulfill the US Mint contracts. Therefore, the US Mint runs the risk of only receiving the minimum amount of silver eco-dollar planchets from these suppliers as specified in the purchase contracts. Unfortunately, now the Mint does not have the equipment or personnel to again resume acquiring their own silver and once more creating their own planchets in large quantities. As he understands it, the Mint has been able to negotiate some increase in silver eco-dollar planchet supplies on the basis of being major long-time customers. However, these suppliers also have huge profit incentives to provide the US Mint the maximum number of planchets. And in addition to there being difficulties of the US Mint obtaining silver, there's also difficulty to actually obtaining physical silver upon maturity of the contracts. So I mean, you can see how messy this situation is, and it keeps even going on. I'm gonna stop here because this is a very long video. If you're still with me, I respect you to the fullest. Please pat yourself on the back. You're someone that wanted to soak up every piece of information. You didn't click off the video within 2-3 minutes. You didn't only watch 2-3 minutes of the video and leave a long comment acting like you know it all before you even got any of the information that we're talking about. You stayed humble, you watched through the video, and you wanted to learn as much, and that's going to reflect in your stacking strategy or your success. And I respect you for that. And if you think that I offered you content worthy of a like or a subscription, then please do so. I post daily videos. I want to take a second to give a shout out to my channel sponsor, bullionmax.com. I'm honored to be working with one of the best bullion dealers online. Great prices, great deals, and by far the best packaging out of any company that I've ever seen. They even offer a silver starter kit, which is 5 ounces of silver at below employee pricing, with extremely high premium coins for a great deal. It's only one per household, but a great way to lower your dollar per ounce average a bit and get a chance to grab some great coins. So shout out to Bullion Max, such a great company, always sending me silver to give away to my subscribers as well. bullionmax.com, and if you want the starter kit, go to bullionmax.com/silverslayer. And also make sure to go to ag47apparel.com if you want to express your love for precious metals with the clothes on your back. Thanks for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.